Hello, everybody. Welcome to the regular business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, September 2nd. Holland Squallen, Clis Tukhtma, Tla Squamish Okmeo. As always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting. If you have concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting, can I have someone move adoption of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Hamilton. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our first order of business is a proclamation request from the Squamish 55 Plus Community Society. So I believe we have a representative here. Come on up. You can approach the podium here. Yep. And I'll let you know when we get it's all up and ready for you. So take it away. The floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Herford and District of Squamish councillors. I'm Marlene Russell, the president of the Squamish 55 Community Society. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm here to ask you to consider naming October 1st an annual celebration in honor of Squamish seniors. The United Nations has declared October 1st as International Seniors Day, or as they call it, the International Day of Older Persons. The objective is to appreciate the achievements of senior citizens in their community and country, to promote a setting that enables seniors to live with dignity and as independently as possible. Canada has declared National Seniors Day to be observed annually on October 1st to celebrate and recognize the valuable contributions of older adults to Canadian families, communities, and society. This evening, I'm asking that you, the Mayor and Council, declare October 1st as Squamish Seniors Day, an annual recognition of all seniors in Squamish to support this community. The 2021 Squamish census shows there were 5,000 people 55 plus in the Squamish district. And I expect there are a lot more now. These valuable citizens are historians, volunteers, babysitters, tutors, coaches, drivers, valued friends, loved grandmas and grandpas, and much more. A Squamish Seniors Day provides an opportunity to show appreciation to the seniors in the community as their many contributions often go unnoticed. Please declare October 1st to be Squamish Seniors Day annually, beginning in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for our guests this evening? We do have the request here. I think the request we have in our packet, in our agenda, does say that that October 1st, 2025 be proclaimed as Squamish Seniors Day in the District of Squamish. It doesn't get to that in perpetuity piece that we just heard of the ask, so perhaps that's worth discussion. But Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, the in perpetuity piece, that's something, the proclamation requests we've had that I've seen around the table have been annual ones. Is there a reason why we do them annually?
We're not limited in this way. I think that some of these initiatives do have ebb and flow over time as levels of interest and organization happens. But besides that, we're not fettered that way. Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a question for our guests this evening. I am curious if we have anything planned for October 1st, if there's anything that we can help support or amplify the message around as in addition to just a proclamation.
Well, with the cooperation of the District of Squamish at the 55 Activity Center, we're planning a kind of open house because there's a lot of people in the greater District of Squamish who don't even know the opportunities that are there for seniors. So we're kind of having an open house where maybe a half hour of all the different activities that happen through the week are going to be available. And you can try your line dancing, or you can try playing a ukulele, or you can try the exercise classes, and so on and so forth. And our society will be there as well to welcome new members. We're going to have a one-day special where you can join our group and become a member for the rest of this year and all of 2026. It's a one-day special, so for all the new people that may come. So we're planning that. I'm hoping that if the council approves this, this declaration, that the business community will come on board, and the chief newspaper will come on board, and so on, so that the whole community will sort of realize that this is something special, and maybe, I hope it'll be every year, not just this one time.
Council, any other questions? Councillor Hamilton?
If there are other questions, I was ready to move. And I'm going to move that council adopt that October 1st, 2025 be proclaimed as Squamish Seniors Day in the District of Squamish. And that's just 2025. I'll speak to it if seconded.
Seconding that, Councillor French, go ahead.
Thanks. And the reason why I've selected just 2025 is I find that this process of coming to council helps us remember all of the advocacy that needs to happen on behalf of various members of our community. And so by limiting us to 2025 and not in perpetuity, I'm hoping that we can continue to be reminded of the importance of seniors in our community every year when we come to the table and make this decision.
Thank you. I'll go to the seconder.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Herford. I completely agree with that. To declare it in perpetuity helps to take it off the radar. So it does put a bit of an onus on the society to come to us somewhere in September to ask for this declaration. But I think that's an opportunity to make sure that seniors are at least one point in every year the focus of discussion in this chamber. And I'm really pleased that you're here today asking for the recognition of Seniors Day. Our seniors deserve it, having their own special day. And in my mind, every day is Seniors Day. So I've met with Marlene a few times since she was elected to lead the Squamish 55 Community Society. And I can tell you, Council, we have some work to do to optimize the relation with the society. Marlene and her team have, in my opinion, exercised great patience and done an excellent job of working cooperatively with the district in a time of pretty significant change the last bunch of months. And I'm thinking specifically West Winds coming online. In the months ahead, as we look forward to the 2026 to 2030 council term, I think that we have an opportunity to really put some more work into that relationship and improve how senior support policy decision-making related to those that are 55 plus.
Thank you. Other comments on this? Councillor Pennington?
Yeah, I guess in my mind debating a little bit. The ask was for perpetual, and even if there's value, I mean, that wasn't the ask. I think given where we are, I will support this, and maybe if this comes back again next year with an ask for it to be perpetual, maybe we need to think twice about doing it only for a year. But I do appreciate having a delegation come and being that extra reminder. I think we did see the All Ages and Abilities Plan fairly recently, and so that outlined some of the things that we need to do. And I do see in some of our building planning and so on us paying more attention to this. It is an important topic. I'm hoping to have my parents convince them to come here, and I'm I guess trying to wrap my head around the fact that I'm 4 years away, or less than 4 years away, from qualifying. And so, maybe soon it'll be me standing up at that podium, who knows? But I thank you for the presentation. Oh, and I just wanted to sort of a note to staff, if we can have the October 1st events added to our calendar, I would really appreciate that. And, maybe there's a chance for us to drop in and see some of the stuff that's happening. So thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, happy to support the proclamation in front of us. And thank you so much for coming today and raising this opportunity for us to proclaim October 1st as Squamish Seniors Day. And for the advocacy that you've done on behalf of the seniors community. As Councillor French said, there's always more work to do. And we do have a number of things ongoing, but I look forward to putting October 1st in my calendar and popping into the 55 and seeing everything that's going on and connecting with yourself and your members. And I should check this fact. Somebody once told me not that long ago that the fastest growing portion of our demographics in Squamish are seniors. So we are rapidly growing across the board. We are a young population typically, but our fastest growing demographic are seniors. And so definitely something that we have been turning our eyes and our attention to and making sure that we have all the services that we need in order to ensure that people can age in place, live happy, long, healthy lives, feel like they're contributing to their communities, and the seniors really do provide so much in terms of heart and soul and time to connecting us all. So thank you for the work.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Happy to support. Thank you for bringing this this forward. As Councillor Stoner said, I feel like that seniors are the fastest growing demographic is something that we've heard collectively in this room more than once, and being one of the youngest, if not the youngest communities in Canada for a long time, I didn't see that next wave of a lot of folks following their kids and grandkids out to join us here in Squamish. It's really interesting how these things ebb and flow over time. So we do have a lot of folks that are newer to our community in the seniors category as well. And I think the initiative that you have underway particularly for the event on the 1st, I think is great. And I hope I can figure out how to get there to have a sample of that. So happy to support. And with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, moving on to item 3.2. We have a proclamation request from CN regarding Rail Safety Week. And I believe we have a representative from CN joining remotely. There's Mr. Banick.
Can you hear me, Your Worship?
We can. Thank you. Your camera's off. Whether that's intentional or not, I'm not sure. But
it is not. No, bear with me here as for some reason.
The floor is yours when you're ready.
Okay, I am talking and trying to start to go. Here we go. All right, bear with me, Your Worship. It's just thinking. There we go. Good. Can you see me?
There you go.
Wonderful.
Yep.
All right.
Take it away.
Thank you. Your Worship, Council, members of the public. My name is Tyler Banick. I'm CN's Public Affairs Manager for CN in British Columbia. And I'm here before you tonight to speak to you about rail safety. And I apologize for not being able to be there in person. In mid-July, CN's Janet Drysdale, Interim Chief Stakeholder Relations Officer, our Chief of Police, CN's Sean Will, and Operation Lifesaver Chris Day provided a letter to Mayor and Council requesting support of spreading awareness of rail safety in the community, as well as declaring September 15th to 21st, or proclaiming September 15th to 21st as Rail Safety Week in the District of Squamish. Today, I follow up with you on that request. A little bit of background: for more than 20 years, CN's partnered with Operation Lifesaver to raise public awareness about the dangers of crossing and trespassing safety on rail property. And through those collaborative efforts and community engagement, we strive to foster a culture of rail safety and preventing accidents across our network. By looking out for each other and working together, we can help keep our communities safe and prevent injuries and fatalities on or near rail property. and reducing the 261 railway crossing and trespassing incidents in Canada in 2024, which resulted in 68 avoidable fatalities and 58 avoidable serious injuries. And that's all railways across the networks. Because we cannot do it alone, Your Worship, CN asks that Council adopt the 2025 Rail Safety Proclamation and declare September 15th, to 21st Rail Safety Week in your community of Squamish.
Thank you very much. Council, do you questions for our guest? Councillor Anderson? Nope. That was if we have no go ahead, Councillor Banick.
Well, I was going to attempt a resolution. So I was going to propose moving the recommended resolution minus the third whereas, and I would speak to that if seconded. There's five whereas clauses.
Oh, the recommendation was just the first one, or are you thinking going further into the ask in the letter itself?
Yeah, there was sorry, I thought the ask was that we sort of endorse the supplied resolution. Is that not the?
That is the ask, yes. Yeah.
So I'm just going to get that in front of me, but go ahead.
Yeah, so it's on page 10 of our agenda.
I can share it too, if that helps.
It's okay. We have it here. So go ahead, Councillor.
Do I have a seconder? Okay. Yeah. So I just for me, the third bullet, a lot of the sort of important pieces are covered by the other whereas clauses. I think the reminding the public that railway rights of ways are private property. That piece, as we're sort of working through reconciliation and many of these topics and thinking about the conversations we're having, that for me was touchy language and made me a bit uncomfortable. And I know there's lots of discussion to have and so on. And so I just felt this resolution just sort of was more clear and focused on what's really important here, which is the rail safety piece, was just sort of strengthens and focuses on what the intent is. I think there's a whole lot of discussion to have under that railways and private property, especially as it crosses Indigenous unceded territories and so on. And so that was my rationale for leaving out the third whereas.
Okay. Any other comments on this? Seeing none, I'll just venture my own. The recommendation we had in our agenda was just to declare the Rail Safety Week, although this was the whole ask. But I'm happy with where we've landed here with the exclusion of that middle whereas clause. So happy to support, and anything we can do to advance safety in the community, I think is a worthwhile venture, including but not limited to this. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That wasn't an. No. Okay. Sorry, that was the vote. But if you want to add a comment after, you're welcome to. Or do you have a question for now that we've just a comment? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. Mr. Banick's comment that the railway industry can't do it alone is very important for us. We often treat railway proximity guidelines, and we forget that these guidelines are not brought to us by CN or by the railway industry, that they are a partnership between municipalities, local government across the country, and the railway. And safety is a big part of the background and purpose of the railway proximity guidelines. But I just wanted to emphasize or re-emphasize Mr. Banick's comment that safety and railway proximity policies and management, this is a partnership. The railways can't do it alone, neither can we. And this is an important aspect to emphasize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Banick. Motion carried. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you for the collaboration. I know your team behind the scenes, as well as Mayor and Council, we've got a lot of good collaborations over the last number of years on different locations within the district that we've worked together to solve. And I know it's It's never an easy solve or a quick solve, but through those communications and working together, we've seen some good progress. So for that, I thank you for that partnership as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, Council, we'll move on with our agenda here. We're on to item 4, which would be unscheduled public attendance. So if anyone has a matter that's urgent or emergent in nature that needs to be dealt with by council prior to the next council meeting, regular council meeting in 2 weeks, this would be your opportunity to do that. Going once. Okay, seeing none, we will move on through the agenda. We do not have any public hearings today. We do have the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mayor Herford. I wish to pull item B4, and that is in fact the letter from our mayor concerning the request for consultation on CN's amended 3-year rail network plan. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, we'll deal with that at the appropriate spot. Anyone else? I'll pull the item B2, and we'll chat about that at the appropriate time as well. So those 2 items removed. Does anyone like to move the consent agenda? Moved by Councillor Hamilton, second by Councillor Stoner, was that? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll deal with the items that were pulled at the appropriate time. So now we're moving on to bylaws. So our first piece today would be the District of Squamish Board of Variance bylaw, and we should have some staff arriving to take us through that. We'll give them a second to get set up, but when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Let's see. Oh, microphone. Oh, there we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Victoria Wright. I'm the Research and Policy Clerk here at the District of Squamish. I'm joined this evening by Melissa von Bludut, the Director of Corporate Administration and the Corporate Officer. This evening, I will be presenting the proposed amendments to the Board of Variance bylaw. For the objectives this evening, I'll be presenting the background, a summary of the key changes, the next steps, and a recommendation for your consideration. So the current Board of Variance bylaw was adopted in 2016 and has not been amended since. Since the bylaw was adopted, the population of the municipality has significantly increased, which has resulted in the need to increase the size of the panel from 3 to 5 members to comply with the requirements set out in the Local Government Act. The legislation states that a municipality with a population under 25,000 should have a board of 3 members, and over 25,000 should be 5. As of 2023, the population of the district was estimated to be approximately 29,000, which means we're required to adjust the board size accordingly. Since the bylaw was adopted, there's also been several legislative changes, which have resulted in increased zoning flexibility and have, as a result, a reduction in variances. These changes have included an update to the Local Government Act, which allows council to delegate decisions regarding variance permits to staff, and the changes have been reflected in the Land Development Procedures bylaw, in addition to updates to the zoning bylaw as a result of Bill 44. The changes that we're proposing this evening are intended to increase the efficiency of the board, saving staff time and administrative pressure, and also will give us more flexibility in reaching quorum for board meetings, having those extra board members. On the screen, you can see a summary of the key changes. So as I mentioned, updating the board from 3 members to 5. We're also proposing changing the hearings from monthly to quarterly, with a meeting on the 3rd Wednesday of March, June, September, and December. We will have the flexibility to add additional meetings if required, with through the corporate officer and with the consent of the chair. And then other minor changes that are not listed above. Oh, sorry, I think. Are establishing procedures regarding the appointment of a chair and acting chair, and some other minor administrative updates. So the next steps, providing the bylaw receives 3 readings this evening. It will go to adoption at the next regular council meeting. We'll begin the recruitment for additional board members, and the changes to the panel size and the meeting schedule we are proposing will come into effect in January of 2026. As we've already advertised the meeting dates for this year, and it will also give us time to recruit the additional board members. And the recommendation that we have for you this evening is that Board of Variance Bylaw number 2458, 2016, Amendment Bylaw number 3142, 2025, be given first, second, and third reading. Thank you.
Council, questions about what we've heard or what was included in the package? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question about the hardship piece, which seems fairly central to the Board of Variance. And for me, I have a lot of trouble wrapping my head around hardship. It sort of, my perception of it is someone, buys an oddly shaped property. They come to us and say, well, it's oddly shaped, so I can't do what I would do if this was rectangular. I have a hardship, please accommodate me. In my mind, it's like, well, you knew that when you bought it, that was probably built into the price. And so do we have, I see that hardship is mentioned in the provincial legislation and so on, so I'm not sure how much discretion we have, but are we able as a body to put policy or expectations around what is considered a hardship or how that is dealt with? Or is that strictly provincial and we really have no discretion around hardship?
That's a challenging question that I don't have the answer to. I would need to do some more research. I suspect because it's in the provincial, it's the parameters are set by the province, we wouldn't have much discretion around that. And when it does come to the hardship, it is on the applicant that has applied for the variance to convince the board, to present their case to the board as to why there is hardship there. But outside of that, I would have to do some more research.
Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. The bylaw directs the district to maintain a record of all decisions of the board and make the record available for public inspection. So I looked for public records relating to the Board of Variance meetings and couldn't find any. And I looked because none of this shows up in any of our meetings or our minutes. We just have no exposure to this body. And in my 6 years as a councillor, I don't recall making any appointments to that board. Couldn't find the names of the 3 people that are on the Board of Variance. And then when I think of what the advisory design panel does, it's quite different. All the agendas are available, the minutes are posted, the meeting videos are easy to find and very accessible. So I'm wondering, what is it about the Board of Variance and their meetings that has this level of what I perceive to be not much transparency?
So all of our Board of Variance minutes are on Civic Web. They're under committee minutes 2025 and then Board of Variance. And the reason you might not find them very frequently is we don't have very many meetings. We've only had 2 this year. So, but the minutes are there. The agendas are a little bit different. They aren't published through Civic Web, so they aren't available through the open portal. if someone did come in and requested information on the Board of Variance, we would make that available to them. They are available to the public. They just aren't as readily available through our standard process for other agendas.
Okay, so is that transparency level dictated by legislation or by policy, or that's just the way it is and it always has been?
It's an internal process. Part of it is that the staff who are the subject matter experts on Board of Variance are responsible for vetting the agenda and putting the agenda together and reviewing the applications. So it isn't encompassed within the corporate administration department like our other agendas are. So it's a disconnect between who administers the agendas versus the Board of Variance agendas, if that makes sense. Yeah, but that is a process improvement that we could potentially look at for sure.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Herford.
I'll come to you, Councillor Anderson. Just following up on that point, is it, we usually get ADP minutes. Would it be here that we would, if council wanted to receive the minutes of the Board of Variance, is this where it would go, or would that just be an internal, something that doesn't need to be captured in the bylaw? It can be done another way.
For both Board of Variance and ADP, the boards approve their own minutes, so they don't come to council for approval. However, we could provide them to you for information if that was council's wish.
My intent was just information, which is how the ADPs have come to us. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. So sorry. So for information, that was could just be a process. Sorry. To get that to happen, it wouldn't need to be part of the bylaw. That could just be some other internal process.
It wouldn't need to be part of the bylaw. We could look at a process change to include those end up.
I'm not convinced that's what needs to happen. I was just curious if we want to do that, where we would do that. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. The persons with whom I'm acquainted who have served on the Board of Variance have tended to be people with a lot of experience in the building sector, typically retired people. And in fact, one person is a long-serving member of the Board of Variance. My question is, have we experienced with difficulty in recruiting members? And might this be a consideration in moving to 5 members? How is the recruitment? What is the experience in recruiting new members to the board? Thank you.
In the past, it has been challenging to recruit members to the Board of Variance. On that side, on the other side, we are running up against occasionally the members sitting on the board are also involved in the application. So now we're seeing conflict of interest, which means we can't hit quorum for the Board of Variance with 3 members, but we will likely face some challenges recruiting 2 additional members.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, Council, or we do have a recommendation before us if we're ready for that? Councillor French?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Herford. I'm just getting back to where you are at. I'm still not clear. So I'll just ask direct. Would staff like to have a motion from council that indicates we want Board of Variance minutes appearing on our agendas?
As a separate motion, absolutely. Then it's we can adjust our process. It does not need to be included in the consideration of the bylaw for first 3 readings.
Are you moving the recommendation?
I'll move first 3 readings. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hamilton seconds. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, speaking in support of moving first 3 readings for the Board of Variance bylaw amendments. I think these make good sense. They bring us in line with provincial legislation and policy. And the Board of Variance is a little bit of an interesting one, as we've spoken to a little bit this evening. It really is. While we like to think that we have every potential scenario covered in our zoning bylaw, we know that there are random things that happen, and it's important that there's a fair judicial process that is separate from this governing body that can adjudicate. Thank you. adjudicate those in a way that have a depth of understanding of the nuances in those planning discussions that are often missing at this table. And so I think going to 5 board members, while there might be some recruitment issues, will ensure that hopefully it is better in getting quorum to those meetings. And as we've seen, there have been fewer and fewer meetings, and part of that is amendments to our own zoning processes. Part of that is changes in the development community, becoming more familiar with our zoning bylaws and the changes that have been made. And so I think the changes to the scheduling also make good sense. So everything that is in the bylaw amendment, I am 100% supportive of. And I will entertain a motion for my council colleagues in consideration to bring the meeting minutes here if someone wants to entertain a motion like that. But I also don't think it's entirely necessary. They are available through Civic Web. And we don't really get a say. So I think it just pads our agendas. If you're interested in reading the minutes, they're there on the website. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, happy to support this. I think the recommendation and rationale makes sense. I would appreciate just at some point in the future an understanding if there is any discretion around hardship. That word comes up in some of our discussions around variances, not board variance issues sometimes. So just understanding at a very high level if there's any leeway there, or this is all provincially defined. And this comment is not meant to imply a memo or a report or anything. I think that I believe would require a council resolution. So this is a very hopefully simple question with a 1-sentence answer at a future meeting is just the level of understanding I'm looking for at this point. But that aside, I do support this motion as moved by my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Yeah, thanks very much. I absolutely support the motion. This seems like a fairly straightforward cleanup, housekeeping of our bylaws and to keep them in line with our population increase, which is good. And regarding the additional information, I do think that it would be of value to have the minutes and the agendas of the Board of Variance at least included in our consent agenda so that it's brought to our visibility more clearly when decisions are being made about variances. I looked back into the two meetings that have happened this year, and the minutes are like what minutes are, fairly brief, and certainly raised some questions for me about that I would like to understand more clearly what the process was getting there. So I think that having the agenda and the minutes available in our correspondence would be good, but that's for a subsequent motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll be brief. I'm happy to support this. I think we'll put this on the long list of things that need to evolve as we grow as a community, and we've hit a new threshold, and I think an increasing the number that necessitates the increase in numbers. And I also think regardless of with that sort of set aside, having a larger number of board members improves the opportunity of getting quorum, which is hard to achieve on very important work that happens infrequently. So I do think that this will serve us well going forward. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Councillor French.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Herford. Just before I get to this motion, I'm curious to learn from staff. Councillor Hamilton had suggested that both the agendas and the minutes be included in council materials. It seems odd to me that we would have agendas in our agendas. We don't do that with ADP. It just from a workflow, and how would we do that? Can you talk about whether that's reasonable to expect agendas of the Board of Variance to be provided to council as part of our agenda packages?
It would definitely take some adjustments to our current process, and some of the packages, although not as long as councils, do add a fair bit of content. So you're looking at increasing the content in your agenda package fairly significantly, probably 50 pages. per meeting. So it's, yeah, and it would take a little bit to iron out a process and just make sure we're vetting it before we start implementing it.
Okay, with that, I have a motion. That council directs staff to include Board of Variance meeting minutes in future regular council meeting agendas. And I'll speak to it if it's seconded.
Councillor Hamilton seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm, based on what I've heard here about the Board of Variance agendas, I'm consciously only asking for minutes. I see great value in those minutes, as I see in the ADP materials, and less so with the agendas. And I just think that that would be, to include the agendas for the Board of Variance would be an unnecessarily huge burden for our staff. So what I see as most valuable for council is the minutes out of those meetings.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? Councillor Hamilton?
A question for staff, hopeful question of clarification. The minutes that I see posted on Civic Web, they don't include any of the supporting material that led to that decision. So when we get an ADP minutes, we see the plans, the decision that was made. Whereas when I look at the Board of Variance minutes, I only see the decision. I don't see any plans submitted. I put that in the agenda. That's what I was thinking I was getting from the agenda, hoping to get from the agenda. Could staff speak to where does that material live?
So right now, that's our Board of Variance agendas aren't published publicly. It's a different process for developing the agenda. So it isn't our regular Civic Web process. One element that I would like to look at more closely is because Board of Variance deals with specific properties and the plans for specific properties, before we're posting those publicly, I would like to vet them to ensure that we're not disclosing personal information that could compromise. So I understand why also would like to see them. The minutes, definitely. The agendas, we do need to vet before I can commit to making those available publicly. Yeah.
Okay, any further comments on this, Councillor Banick?
Yeah, thanks. I would support this. I think we've stated, or I hope it's clear that my expectation is that this would show up on a consent agenda. So it's clear that this is not a thing we're voting on. It's for your information. I think the public does look at our agendas. And so in terms of providing transparency, I think this is useful. I do think, it's not clear to me, and maybe there's something, a point of learning here. It's not clear to me that other than who the decision maker is, that the sort of nature of information is different than a variance request or a rezoning and so on. So it's not clear to me why the package wouldn't be publishable, even if we're not sort of regularly doing it. And so I think this would be a good addition to have as part of our consent agenda in the future.
Thank you. I'm speaking in support of the motion. I think that, and I believe I misspoke right with ADP. I've just read so many ADP minutes that are actually attached to a development that's got my head a bit twisted on it. But at the same time, I've consumed a lot of them so I think with this, there's lessons to be learned as stated in the staff report on this topic. Our zoning bylaws evolved over time to necessitate less trips to Board of Variance. And I think I'd like to be able to see those trends sort of coming and would be helpful context going forward. So with them appearing on the agenda, the motion is very general to agenda. I think we've got consensus here that it's that the consent agenda would be fine, but there are opportunities there to inquire further on the piece, or refer to a committee of the whole if we want to see supporting documents or something else. So as imperfect as that is, we do have that mechanism available to us. So we'll see how how that goes. And I think this is a step forward. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. So next we're on to 7A2, which is the District of Squamish Floodplain Management Bylaw number 3184, 2025. And we've done a little swap out. We'll have some new staff join us to run us through, introduce the topic and take us through a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is David Rolston. I'm the Senior Manager of Infrastructure Planning with the District of Squamish, here today to speak about the Floodplain Management Bylaw. So the objectives today are to present new information to Council on technical flooding information and also to seek the first 3 readings of the new bylaw. Some quick background is that the district undertook an integrated flood hazard management plan between 2014 and 2017. And at the culmination of that, the district adopted its first floodplain management bylaw in 2017. Shortly following that, in 2018, the district updated our official community plan, which included new flood policy as well as development permit area 2. Which regulates new development within designated floodways. In 2019, the district amended that bylaw, and again in 2021, and here we are in 2025 for the 3rd bylaw amendment, and I'll speak to the content that will address. But first, I'll just give a bit of an overview of the district's flood management policy. So the Integrated Flood Hazard Management Plan is the overarching document that provides guidance. And then the actual policy is enshrined in the official community plan, which has broad goals and objectives, as well as our land use policy. And as I mentioned, there's also Development Permit Area 2 contained within the OCP, and that regulates new development within floodways and debris flow areas. And then as a separate regulation, we have the floodplain management bylaw that regulates building elevations, also known as flood construction levels, as well as setbacks from dikes and watercourses and other construction specifications within designated flood hazard areas. So there are 3 main pieces of changes that are being proposed here with the new bylaw. The first is to update the downtown flood construction level exemption area, and that is to align with downtown designated land uses. So within the exemption area, non-residential land uses are allowed below the flood construction level, and that's to preserve the historic streetscape of downtown. So it's shown at the top of the figure, the area in red, that is proposed to be added to the downtown FCL exemption area. The second change is arising in the Garibaldi Estates. So the district's integrated flood hazard management plan completed a desktop study of overland flooding from Massachusetts Creek. It was a high-level study, and because of that, there were some conservative assumptions built into that. Through the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood planning process, the district has hired or retained a qualified professional who completed a detailed hazard assessment as well as flood modeling, and that is leading to a couple of changes. The first is that it's reducing the extent of the flood area, so that's shown in gray. That area is being removed as an overland flow hazard area. And the second change is shown in yellow. So within this area, the flood construction level is being reduced from 1 meter above grade to 0.3 meters above grade. And so these changes are basically to reduce flood requirements and make sure that we don't have more onerous regulations than is actually required. And the final changes just fall under the classification of minor housekeeping. So this is updating new ministry names to match the current naming, as well as staff titles. There's some minor language clarifications, and then the final changes to allow public washrooms below the flood construction level, subject to a set of conditions, including that the structures are designed to withstand the effects of floodwater. And with that, the recommendation is that the District of Squamish Floodplain Management Bylaw number 3184, 2025 be given first, second, and third readings. And with that, I'll hand it over to the chair for any questions.
Thank you very much. Council, questions? Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you for the presentation and the work. 2 questions. The first being on the parcel that we're now including in the historic downtown area, why was that originally included in, or why was that not originally included in the exempt area?
Through the chair, I'm not certain the reason. If there was a change in the official community plan, that would be some forensics required to go back to the previous official community plan, but I would say it was not an intentional omission. Probably falls more under just a mapping issue.
Thank you for that. And then my second question was around the Master Creek detailed hazard assessment. Appreciate the additional insight that the detailed assessment has provided to us. And the effort here to make sure that we're not over-regulating where we don't need to. I am curious about, do we have like an order of magnitude in terms of the cost of that study? And if doing so in other neighborhoods could potentially change like the threshold that we're requiring of development in other areas?
The order of magnitude for that was under $100,000. I'm not sure the exact cost. It was an initiative led by the planning department with technical oversight from the engineering department. And then this is one of a few areas where a desktop study informed flood construction levels. In a lot of the other areas of town, there were more detailed studies completed as part of the integrated flood hazard management plan. Because it was somewhat scope limited, there were certain areas like the Master Creek overland flow area where the scope of the study was kept high level, but there's not a lot of areas actually other than this where that same condition is present.
Okay, and then one final question that just popped up in terms of appreciate we've made a few amendments. It still has been, was it 2018 when we adopted the integrated flood hazard management plan? So
2017.
2017. Okay, almost 10 years. We have kind of adjusted course along the way here and there, but when I guess is the next scheduled update for the integrated flood hazard management plan and doing some of that more kind of bigger discussion, course correction on the trade-offs that are included in that work?
Through the chair, the district is planning to update the integrated flood hazard management plan beginning in 2027. It's likely to be a couple year, probably a 2 to 3 year initiative, similar to last time. So there will be extensive engagement with community and council as part of that process. So we'll be looking to have a new adopted integrated flood hazard management plan probably in 2029.
Councillor Penninghill.
Yeah, thanks. A couple things. The analysis we saw around the Master Creek, am I correct in thinking that work came out of its genesis was council direction as we are contemplating the Garibaldi Estates, or were there other additional drivers for that work?
Through the chair, the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood planning process was the driver for this, and evaluating just that staff sort of understood that flood construction levels were known to be conservative, and that it was going to present challenges for implementing more intensive development within the area. And so we wanted to ensure that we weren't going to embark on a redevelopment of a neighborhood with more conservative or more onerous requirements that could pose a challenge for that redevelopment. So that was really the drivers to make sure that we're implementing right-sized flood management measures.
Okay, and just for my clarity then, because there was some council direction or questions about this, did that sort of put additional, I guess, focus in terms of timelines and so on? But this work was already sort of part of that whole Garibaldi Estates sort of, or this Masher Creek study was already in our work plans, or was this solely driven by that council direction?
Through the chair, Jonas Wanishke, Senior Director of Community Development. That study was part of the work plan for the Garibaldi Estates Neighborhood Plan. And I believe the adoption of the plan was delayed through council direction until that study was finished. So that's where it was.
Okay, thank you. And then moving to downtown, and I guess it was 2021, we saw with just a king tide flooding downtown and so on. And, the impacts to that, as I understand, were strictly commercial properties, and we do allow for that, but just wondering, did that event and sort of seeing where we are, we still got a ways to go on our downtown diking, does that give us any pause in terms of how permissive we are downtown in commercial spaces and that experience? Or are we sort of, given that we're comfortable, this is still the way to go downtown?
Through the chair, that's a good question, and ultimately it's at the discretion of council. The downtown FCL exemption, the concept of it has been in place since 1994, at least since 1994, when the district completed its first flood hazard management plan, just in recognition that achieving the flood construction level would be a major impediment to commercial activity in the downtown. And so there are various trade-offs. And I can say that the area that is being expanded to include the flood construction level area or exemption area is in an area that is further away from the coast, and it's not an area that experienced any flooding in that 2021 event.
Any other questions? We do have the recommend. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
This is really probably just for my understanding, the definition of the FCL, when I look at the maps, it gives the FCL as an elevation. And I assume that's an elevation above mean sea level. Whereas when we talk about the Masheter overland flood hazard, we use the words 0.3 meters above ground. Is there a reason why we use two different definitions in these two different places? And I think that a downtown area has, again, that some distance above ground as opposed to with respect to mean sea level.
Through the chair, good question. It arises, there is a difference. Flood construction levels where we have modeled the flooding in relation to like coastal flooding, that's measured based on known elevations, high tide, we've incorporated sea level rise. So it's based on an elevation, whereas Masheter Creek, it's known as an overland flow hazard area. So that's where basically the creek can jump the banks and then it would flow over the surface of the land. And so there's uncertainty as to how the water would flow in various different events. And so for overland flow hazard areas, the FCL is measured above finished grade elevation as opposed to based on an elevation. So basically within all of our modeled floodplains, which is the Squamish River floodplain, the Mamquam River floodplain, Cheakamus River floodplain, those are all based on elevations because we have completed modeling and it's based on sort of known elevations, whereas this is a bit more uncertain. And so it's based on actual ground elevations.
So my question is, everything that's here makes good sense to me. Looking ahead, one of the pieces is, will something similar need to happen to reflect the Chikai fan debris flow barrier when it's operational? Should we be expecting a similar sort of update? Is that how that process would work?
Through the chair, there's actually an ongoing update on the Chikai fan right now, evaluating whether there should be changes to flood construction levels. It's a very different situation there, a very different hazard. And the Chikai debris flow barrier is not a dike, so it allows water through, and there still is a potential hazard of flooding or debris flooding on the Chikai fan. And so that's the review that's being undertaken right now is, has the barrier provided enough of a measure of protection to reduce the flood construction level? And we don't have a finding or a recommendation on that, but that work is underway right now.
Okay, so if there would, and when should we expect the output of that work? I'm just trying to understand. It sort of meshes in with this on adjacent to this anyways.
Through the chair, within the next 6 months to a year.
Okay, thank you. That's specific enough. Any other questions on anything here? Councillor Pettingill.
I just want to pick up on the Chikai piece. So my understanding is that everything we're doing there is premised on the fact that it will provide some significant level of debris flow protection. Is what you're saying? Yes, but the sort of finer details at the flood construction level piece, that's where there's uncertainty. And so that's where the examination is. But in terms of the broader protection, yes, that's known. Is that?
Through the chair, yes. The Chikai debris flow barrier is providing substantial protection from catastrophic debris flow events and addressing life loss risk. But because there is an opening in the barrier, there is still potential for some level of flooding. And so that's where the flood construction level comes in. It's sort of a secondary mitigation measure, protects not only against loss of life, but also economic damage and things of that nature. So there's sort of other elements that are addressed with the flood construction level, sort of a belt and suspenders approach with, having diking, or in this case, a debris flow barrier, and a flood construction level.
Okay. Councillor Anderson.
Mr. Ralston, could a review of the downtown flood construction level exemption area be a part of the scope of the proposed 2027 review of the flood hazard management plan?
Through the chair, certainly it can. The intent is to complete a comprehensive overview of our flood management policy and to engage with council and the community through that process. So that is certainly an element that can be discussed as part of that.
Thank you. The reason I ask is that as I look at the map and the maps available, and consider your comments regarding the history and the goals of that initiative going back to the mid-1990s, that there may be some other examples of arbitrariness or new goals for specific properties that have this or that circumstance with respect to flood risk. So, in fact, well, I don't need to go into detail, but it strikes me that there are some other parcels that might come into consideration in a review of the boundary of that exemption area. Thank you.
Okay, we're getting solidly into futures. I'll acknowledge I started that, but we're going to pull it back to the matter before us, and I will move the staff recommendation that the floodplain management bylaw be given first, second, and third reading. Second by Councillor Hamilton. Yeah, thank you for your work on this. I think it's important that we keep these as we learn things and as we work with bylaws and we find room for improvement. It's important that we keep updating, and this is exactly that. So thank you very much for the work on this, and I'm happy to support. Any other comments from council? Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, sort of question whether or not I should make this comment, and so maybe that's a sign I shouldn't be doing what I'm about to do. But I really appreciate the level of detail here in this report, and it gives me sort of confidence in the direction we're taking, understanding we're dealing with modeling and uncertainty and so on. But when I think about, and we've just had discussion with the wood fiber and so on, it's not clear to me that the same level of diligence and examination has been done. And I notice, at least one of the folks that's providing the information we're using tonight gave us feedback on the what we've seen on the as the public on the wood fiber piece and raised concerns about that. So I guess for me, what we're seeing tonight is sort of the example of how I would hope we would do things, and maybe there's some opportunity in other cases to do better. So just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, happy to support first 3 readings of the amendments to the flood management bylaw. I know that when we adopted the integrated flood hazard management bylaw, and since it continues to be held up as one of the leading examples in the province for flood management. And in part, it continues to be held up because I think of the interim work that we do to make sure that it is evergreen as we continue to learn more, and we update it so that it is responsive to new information as we get it. I think the addition of the Master Creek detailed assessment is really important, and it helps to move the conversation in balancing the community priorities that we have around safety, flood management and hazard management, as well as tensions around growth and development, and making sure that that comes in at a reasonable cost and that we are doing everything we can to make sure that community is safe, and also that it's going to not cost an arm and a leg to build the houses that we know our community needs. And so that is always a tension with the integrated flood hazard management plan, but it's a really important conversation to be having. And thank you for the work in keeping it up to date.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, Council, moving on, we have adoption, and as per our usual practice, we don't have a presentation here, but we do have the District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011 amendment bylaw pertaining to 38702, 38710, and 38716 Britannia Avenue to adopt. Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Oh, sorry, comment on this?
Yep. And I think I said this before. I really like this project. I would like to be able to support. I still have open questions, as with all development in this area, about the risk from the proposed pipeline. And so for that reason, it's unfortunately, I'm not able to support. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll call the question. All in favor? And oppose? Councillor Pettingill opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. Council, just a quick straw poll. Do we want to keep pushing through here? Do you want to have a quick break? We're close to end 5. Yeah, let's take we'll take a 5-minute break, and when we come back, we'll discuss the Strategic Priorities Fund grant application. So we are now in recess. We'll be back at 15:15. Okay, we are back and we are on to item 8.1, which is the UBCM Strategic Priorities Fund grant application. I'll turn over to staff to run us through the presentation.
Great. Thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brett McMurtry. I'm the Manager of Transportation and joined tonight by David Rolston, the Senior Manager of Infrastructure Planning. And tonight we'll provide a presentation on the UBCM Strategic Priorities Fund grant application. So a bit of background on the grant. It's a federal grant that's being administered by UBCM in British Columbia. And with this intake, there's $125 million available for municipalities outside of Metro Vancouver in British Columbia. Each local government can submit applications for one capital infrastructure project and one capacity building project for a maximum of 2 applications. Infrastructure projects can be up to a maximum of, or the grant will be up to a maximum of $7 million, and up to 100% of eligible project costs can be covered through that. Staff have reviewed projects in our financial plan and recommend applying for both available streams. The Pemberton Laurelwood Bridge project is recommended under the capital infrastructure stream, and the asset management plan update is recommended under the capacity building stream. Bit of background on the Pemberton Laurelwood Bridge project. So this is a project that is currently in the 2025 to 2029 financial plan. It was identified as a short-term priority project in the Transportation Master Plan, as well as the official community plan. There's an action to advance this in the medium term. It will provide a second connection between downtown Squamish and Highway 99 and will complete the recommended truck route from the 2017 downtown truck route study. So the conceptual cross-section is shown on the slide. Through the work being done to advance the grant application, we've come up with a project cost estimate of $24.3 million, including the bridge and improvements along Pemberton Avenue to Loggers Lane. As noted previously, is planned for construction to begin in 2029 and carry out into 2030 for bridge completion, and then continuing on Pemberton Avenue following the bridge completion. We're applying for or recommend applying for the maximum grant contribution of $7 million. Bit of a budget overview. The project is currently in our DCC bylaw and is identified in the 2025 financial plan and will be identified in the forthcoming financial plan with an additional year of construction budget. So the current financial plan includes $10 million of what was an estimate from the Transportation Master Plan of $20 million project, but split between 2029 and 2030. It's recommended that if we're unsuccessful with the grant application, that the project would advance as identified in the financial plan, and that funding would be confirmed with different funding sources being reviewed. High-level timeline of the next steps following this grant application. So here we are today looking for council endorsement of the grant application, moving towards submitting that application on September 12th. Design and permitting will continue from now through to 2028, and construction would begin planning in 2029 to be completed in 2030. With that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Rolston.
Thank you. Under the capacity building stream, we're proposing to apply for the asset management plan update. The district completed its last asset management plan in 2022. At a high level, an asset management plan answers the critical questions of what assets do we own, what's their value, when do they need to be replaced, how much funding is required for that replacement, and recommendations on what the district should do next. Included in the last asset management plan was a natural asset management strategy that answered similar questions, but only for our natural rather than our built assets. So the asset management plan update will build on the existing asset management plan by incorporating new assets as well as new information that we have on asset condition. And we'll also evaluate opportunities to leverage new software that is currently being implemented by the district to move to a more dynamic asset management rather than static and sort of completing an asset management plan every 5 years. We'd move to more sort of active and ongoing asset management practices. And if we are unsuccessful with this grant, then the district will plan to fund this with municipal reserves in 2027.
And with that, I'll just provide the recommendations that are in your council report on the screen here, supporting both the submission of the grant applications and then confirming that any project costs in excess of the grant amounts would be covered by the municipality. And with that, over to you for questions.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councillor Anderson, then Pettingill.
Mr. McMurtry, I wonder whether you may be able to pull up your conceptual cross-section bridge design slide for us, please. My question is, from what perspective are we looking here, north or from the south? That is the multi-use path. Is that on the east side or the west side of the bridge? On the east side, we've got our schools and 2 shopping centers, while on the west side, we've got downtown. Where is it best to locate that multi-use path? What is proposed?
Thank you for the question through the chair. This is a view looking to the north. So the multi-use path is proposed to tie into the existing multi-use path on Laurelwood, which is on the south side of Namquam Blind Channel, which is on the existing eastern side of the Laurelwood Road alignment.
Thank you, Mr. McMurtry.
Yeah, it was a good journey through through the compass. Yes, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, just following up on the cross section, how the cross section is in this report. Is that sort of locked in as a part of this application, or this is sort of something that could still evolve regardless of this grant?
Thank you for the question through the chair. The conceptual plans are submitted as a part of the grant application, but at this time, there still would be an opportunity for minor changes. Yeah, so I'd say that we're locking in on an alignment and proposed facility types, but there's probably some tweaks around the edges that could be considered.
Okay, thanks. And my understanding is we've got this, I believe, this bridge in our DCC bylaw, or if we don't, it will shortly be there. My understanding is it's already there. So DCCs would fund a part of this in a great world. Maybe the grant would as well. Would we use the grant to offset any of the DCC pieces, or would we allocate sort of grant amount to the non-DCC funded portion? Or is that up to us, or do we know?
Through the chair, my understanding is since it's a 99% eligible DCC project, that our district-borne component of that would be relatively small. So it would likely offset the DCC component as well as our own component.
Okay, thanks. 2 more questions. I'll leave the hardest one maybe for last, or maybe it's an easy answer, but just because there's talk in here, if we're not successful, that we still commit to funding this through other sources. What exactly is our commitment here? Like, are we fettering future councils to, like, I guess when I first started reading this, I was thinking this is approving a grant application, but it seems like we're maybe also approving a very specific timeline and locking in on a number of things. So can you just clarify exactly what we are committing to with the proposed resolution?
Through the chair, the proposed resolution is just to support the grant application. So currently the project is in the financial plan that was endorsed last year, the 2025 to 2029 financial plan. And so through that, there's been a preliminary commitment from council that this is going to be starting construction in 2029.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question, when I looked at this grant, as I read it, it could be used for something like a hockey arena, as long as it wasn't for a professional team. is there a bit of discussion? Is it just those timelines? Is that the primary driver why we would apply for the bridge in terms of this grant and not, for example, a hockey rink?
Through the chair, there's a number of criteria that the grant is being assessed against, and some of those are scale of the impact that the proposed infrastructure would support and improve. So regional benefit, ability to support clean communities, and some language kind of around a number of the priorities. And so there was a staff working group that looked at the different projects that are in our financial plan, and then based off the projects that were considered, this was selected as the project that was deemed the most suitable and most likely to be favorably assessed by the grant body.
Okay, Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much. I'm very supportive of us applying for this grant. I think this would be a wonderful way to get this bridge built. I find 20 million or 24 million hard to believe that we'll be able to build the bridge for that much. And I recognize this is coming from a Class D estimate, which comes from somewhere. I've said this once before, maybe multiple times, and maybe it's just been my experience here on council. Maybe there's been significant escalations outside of estimations, but it seems as if we tend to underestimate the cost of a build. So one of the pieces, the emerging pieces of advice, is to use reference class forecasting, meaning look outside and see what other projects have been done of similar magnitude and how much do they cost. And so I went and looked at other bridge builds in BC, and there's been quite a few. The closest is, I would say, Highway 95 in Kicking Horse. It's a 120-meter long bridge, roughly the same as ours, 2 lanes plus a multi-use path. Projected construction time is about 2.5 years. It's about the same as ours. It took them 6 years of planning to get done. I'm sure there's many reasons why that may take long, but the contract cost for that bridge is $45 million. The total project cost was $90 million. And so I'm struggling to understand how we're hoping to do something for $24 million that Kicking Horse was unable to do for took $45 million to do for the contract cost. The reason why that's relevant now, right, is that as we put these numbers into grant applications and into our DCC bylaws, especially into our DCC bylaws, if we put underestimates into our DCC bylaws, we don't collect enough money. If we put underestimates into grant applications, it looks like we're having a large fraction of the project being funded by the grant when it ends up being a much smaller fraction in the end. So I think this 7 million is probably going to end up being more in the 15% of the total cost of the project rather than the 30% or so that it looks like. So can you speak to the budget estimate, how much confidence we have in that, and whether there's any plan to update it or look at it more carefully as we come into this grant application and the upcoming DCC bylaw?
Through the chair, yeah, I can speak to the cost estimate that we've developed. So we're working with a team of consultants who have experts, structural engineers, civil engineers who work on projects throughout the province, as well as within our region. And this is a conceptual level of design that's been advanced to support the grant application. And with that, there are assumptions and estimates that are required in order to inform that cost estimate. So based off the information that we have provided to them and that they have available, this is a cost estimate that includes a contingency on areas where there's assumptions that are unknown that is in line with the level of design that we have. So I think it's a really easy thing to draw comparisons to other projects throughout the province and say they're the same in the length, they're the same in the number of lanes that are provided, but a lot of the cost is associated with things that you don't see. And so in our context, a lot of the cost is borne from ground improvements that are required to support the piers, that are required to support the abutment, that may most likely are not required for the kicking horse projects that you referenced. And so I think it's an important consideration that, yes, that would make our project more expensive, but I'm just saying every project has its own considerations. So based off the experts that we've hired, I hear your concern, but I'm saying that the information that we have.
So one of the ways that I could gain more confidence, one of my challenges is, how can I agree to a financial plan when I suspect it might be $20 million off on one project, right? And I don't want to say no to an entire financial plan because there's one project that I don't have confidence in the budgeting for. So let me get to
you get the question.
Yeah. So when it comes to this project or projects of very large size, very large infrastructure projects, I would like to see clearer justification of the cost estimate, and if possible, an example where a similar project has been accomplished for that price anywhere recently. Yeah. So that's,
I was waiting
know
for
we're
a
up,
question
so thank
there,
you.
Councillor.
It's all good. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Latimer.
Thank you. If I may, just to remind council that the question on the floor right now is about approving a grant application for a project which is already approved in the financial plan. And certainly staff do work to refine those estimates as we move closer to the project implementation date. We are talking about 5 years out, so an estimate has been included at this time, and that's the best number that we can work with right now.
Okay. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. I'm just wondering if you can walk me through the gap between, so the grant would provide us with 7 million. The estimate right now is 24.3. The project is in our DCC bylaw, and we're expecting that the difference would be covered entirely by DCCs. Is that correct?
Through the chair and not seeing someone from our finance department here, that's my understanding, is that our DCC reserves or other options to fund through borrowing and future DCC charges are options that could cover the cost of the remaining portion of the construction cost.
I'm going to ask my next question, knowing that there isn't somebody from finance in the room. And so if you don't have the answer, that's totally fine. But what happens if we don't have sufficient reserves in our DCC? So the grant requires us to build this within 5 years. And so what happens if we don't have enough reserve funding in our DCC to cover the gap?
Through the chair, yeah, in my consultation with the finance department, I don't have the answer to that. I've flagged the grant requirements. Yeah.
Okay, I will ponder that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. That led into my line of questioning, which is around the timeline that of the grant is five years. And I'm just wondering what this, which seems to align with the general timeline that you've put out there, but I just wonder sort of what we do to mitigate the, like, are we committing to something that we're ultimately not going to be able to benefit from, like the $7 million in funding, and just how you don't see, is it safe to assume that given that we're here contemplating making this application, staff has a degree of confidence that the timeline can be hit to benefit from this? It feels like quite aspirational to me.
Through the chair, we're confident that we can hit the timeline that's provided. The grant does require the 5-year completion, and so part of the strategy around separating future improvements to Pemberton Avenue from that would allow us to phase the project so construction of the bridge could be completed in advance of finishing the project in its entirety. Yeah, we understand that there's learnings from the Hunayak Park project as well from a permitting process perspective that we'll work and are working to be on top of to hope meet the timelines that we're committing to.
Okay. Okay, and then as far as the sort of, I'm treating this as separate pieces. We have this, should we pursue federal dollars for this to the tune of the maximum amount is $7 million. That makes sense to me. To that, the matter of further refining numbers for planning purposes, whether it's to be included in DCC bylaws or financial plan, wherever they live, when would the planning advance on this enough to, when would you expect an updated number or a more clarified number, just so we can have this in our minds as we go about trying to shake all the money trees and get this project funded and over the line?
Thank you for the question through the chair. So the work that's scheduled to be completed once this grant application is submitted and we advance to pre-design and design, sort of investigating beyond the desktop of what the existing conditions are and start to confirm geotechnical considerations around ground improvements that are required will help inform our future cost estimates. So that's work that we'll start working on once this grant has been submitted.
Okay, so we shouldn't expect to see a refined number on this for the budget process in October, November. This would feed into potentially the next budget cycle.
Through the chair, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you, the chair. And a question for Mr. Wilson on the asset management plan update. In the report and in your presentation, you said that if we aren't successful in the grant application, we would be doing this work in 2027 funded by reserve. Does seeking this grant push that work up by a year? Is it still intended to happen in 2027?
Through the chair, the proposal is that the work would take place in 2027, regardless of if we're successful for the grant or not.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Are we on track with our funds within the DCC reserve to meet the 24 million by 2029, 2030?
Through the chair, I don't have that information. I'm not sure.
Okay. So I think that actually a couple of times today we've gotten into sort of important discussions about what's just sort of over the horizon in front of us. I think we need to, I'm just going to pull us back to get to the dealing with the recommendation that we have. Councillor Anderson.
Mayor Herford, I'd like to move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. And that's in all of its pieces. And it's seconded by Councillor Stoner. Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, thank you. I have comments on 4 topics. Mr. McMurtry has referred to learnings from the Hunayak Dike project and perhaps other projects as well. One of those learnings concerns archaeological assessment. Archaeology branch is mentioned in the staff report. We should be on safe ground, so to speak here. The archaeological site potential is a little bit further upstream on the other side of the railway bridge, and that's an important site. It's well recognized, but here is unlikely due to other conditions. But the archaeological overview assessment that we're undertaking for the district should help us, and it should be important help so we don't land in places like we did with the Hunayak Dike project in doing an archaeological assessment on land that's accreted land and entirely modern. Second topic I'd like to address is the policies that are referenced, and that I'm sure that staff will do a thorough job in citing them in the grant application, but there are some that are not mentioned in this report, and I'm sure staff are aware of them. I'm very pleased to see reference and highlighting of the objective, OCP objective 20.9, that is concerning port access and commercial transportation, is very important. That's where the big bucks are, potentially, to address our budget needs. And there is in the OCP under section 14.6 additional policy support language that might be cited. That is a section that is often missed by us, and in a future OCP update, we might consolidate these transportation related recommendations so we don't overlook them. Another section of the OCP concerns the regional growth strategy. Goal number 4 addresses port access and port infrastructure quite explicitly from a regional perspective, and this might also be useful. The second comment I'd like to make concerns the funding, really. We are, as a council, going to be in Victoria in a couple of weeks' time, and we have proposed a meeting with Transportation Minister Farnworth to discuss explicitly attention to planning needs, highway access, and safety improvements for trade-enabling transportation infrastructure in the Port of Squamish. And this includes this bridge. And I suggest whether or not we're going to ask Mr. Farnworth for some money, and the staff report does suggest it, or other grant funding. That is, there are some gaps and some possibilities for other grant funding. And maybe we are going to be talking to Mr. Farnworth about this, but I suggest that we do include this bridge in our discussions in a comprehensive picture that we will paint for both levels of government of our needs. Whatever we're going to do with this grant application, we're going to need more. And for other projects. So we're going to highlight this, I suggest, in that meeting with Mr. Farnworth, what we're doing with this grant application. I suggest that would be a good idea. We have Mr. Marrow is with us this evening and applied for funding for this bridge together with Squamish Terminals under the National Trade Corridors Fund. We weren't successful. We had an earlier fund that we could have applied to that we did not, and that was the Asia Pacific Gateway. Both of these funds were respectively several hundred millions of dollars for BC projects, and we never got any, never applied for any really, other than that one initiative. Prime Minister Carney last week announced a new program for ports. And this was just on August 29th, and it's not unexpected. There's going to be another pot of money that we might be able to apply for. This is part of our objective in meeting with Mr. Farnworth to paint this bigger picture and then go to the feds, go to the Squamish Nation. On the Squamish Nation, which is referenced here in the staff report, there is a project that has been penciled in that might be, of course, under consideration, and that is a multi-use path connecting Laurelwood to the Squamish Reserve. And this has been penciled in for many years. It would be parallel to 1010 Laurelwood, that private property. And so these are all considerations for staff. I'm sure they're all kept in mind, but I just think that we should keep in mind this bigger picture of needs for port-related trade-enabling transportation infrastructure. This is part of it. It'll be an ongoing discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much. And thanks very much, staff. Number one, for keeping your eyes out for grants and funding opportunities and finding the best ways to apply them. I'm absolutely supportive of us applying for this grant. The concerns I raised regarding cost estimates, I know Mayor Herford was mentioning, we're getting into things over the horizon. My concern here on our cost estimates is that while that may seem over the horizon, this can be the first domino in a chain of decisions that go from, okay, yeah, we're willing to spend 20 million. Oh, but then we've got that 7 million. Now it's going to be 30 million. So if we don't spend the 30, we're going to lose the 7. Oh, now it's going to be 35 million. And if we don't spend the 35, we're going to lose the 7. So it's being clear and conscious about the overarching costs. And I'm not talking details. I don't mean 24.3 or 24.4 million. I mean the big numbers, tens of millions here. I think it's really important that we spend a little bit more time getting a realistic estimate so that this first domino that we start to push, we don't end up 2 councils down the road having to find $5–10 million of funding that we are short of because we underestimated. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Happy to support the motions that are on the floor. I want to thank staff for the due diligence and recognizing that there was a working group to assess the variety of projects that could be eligible for this grant application. unfortunately, it's rare that grant applications of this scale come forward and become eligible for us. And we know that they will be oversubscribed across the province, up to $7 million, only $123 million for the province as a whole, and demand is high across all of the communities. And I think that the second entrance to downtown in the Pemberton Lower Road Bridge is a really strong candidate based on the criteria that I read in the grant application requirements anyways. And not only is it a strong candidate for the grant application, it is also a really high priority project for our community, one that we have talked about for a long time, and one that we know our DCC program is likely already oversubscribed. Our active transportation plan is ambitious, and we need every single dollar we can get, and we will actually likely draw down the $7 million of this grant, and however much more we can get from the feds, hopefully some more port money will come to fruition. And thank you also for carving out and identifying a project for the capacity building stream. The asset management program is core to what it is that we do as a municipality, and making sure that is up to date every 5 years, including our natural asset components, is one of the biggest values that, as unsung heroes, I would say, of local government, is our asset management plan. And so grateful to hear that we're trying to find ways to make that a little bit more in real time updated, as well as the 5-year update. So looking forward to hopefully getting successful funding applications for both of those important projects.
Not seeing any other hands. I'll just I'll say just thank you for bringing this forward. I think this approach is totally appropriate, and doing as much as we can with the monies of the other orders of government sounds like a great path forward. And we should pursue all those opportunities, even the ones Councillor Anderson was speaking of, and whatever it is that do come available. And I appreciate that this opportunity was brought to us, and I have the utmost confidence that other opportunities will come our way as well, and I'm happy to support those when they do. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So we didn't have any late agenda items or correspondence action requested. We do have some pieces referred from the consent agenda, so I'll just deal with them in the order they appeared initially, which was the item 6B2, which was the opposition critic for municipal affairs letter, which I pulled, and then we'll go to Councillor Anderson pulled the letter that I regarding CN. So just on this piece, I was going to pull it up, but essentially I thought it was interesting, and I don't know that we've, in my time as between last term and this term, that we've pursued anything with the opposition, and I just wanted to explicitly have a conversation with council. There were opportunities in the letter to sort of attend some events that they have scheduled to align with the sorry, I'm going from memory. I'm trying to get the letter in front of me, but basically to align with the timing of UBCM. And then we have opportunity to also request a meeting. And I wanted to just check in with council and see if anyone thought this was an opportunity, or so we can have a discussion around this, and potentially as we move into thinking about how we manage our time at UBCM, if we should be sort of having some folks attend some of these sessions just to keep us sort of to report back. So that was sort of the nature of this. I am happy to, we can just move receipt if we don't want to pursue any of this, but I thought it was an interesting piece, and I hadn't seen it before. So I thought I'd bring it to council for discussion. Go ahead.
Mayor Herford, I'm a yes on this. I believe that it's important to have relationships across the political spectrum. As we all know, we have a Green MLA in our riding, NDP governing this province, which for our community sets us quite a distance from the opposition. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to get to know some people in the conservative opposition and create some relationships.
So would then being, with that in mind, are you thinking we ask for a specific meeting in relation to something else that we've been advocating for? Or are you suggesting that attending some of the opportunities presented here, page 17 to 19 of your agenda, folks, for if you would like the letter in front of you, or do you think attending one of these sessions intentionally is enough to sort of, or is appropriate at this point in time? That's sort of the.
Yeah, I skimmed this letter, didn't really digest it, and didn't expect that we'd be having this conversation, and I'm glad that we are. So I think I need to dig into it a bit to answer your specific question, because for me, really, it's just about meeting someone and having a connection to that group of politicians in our provincial capital.
Maybe I was going to get us to arrive. I was hoping we'd arrive here organically, but given the hour, they have 3 sessions on one on crime, one on health, one on housing. And the minister meetings at UBCM, I think, are really challenging. There's so many things happening. Sometimes it takes away from the rest of the event. I'm going to say that the critic is likely easier to get a meeting with than the minister. So perhaps an approach would be to try to have representation at each of these 3 pieces, and then see if we follow up post UBCM with a meeting with the critic if we think that that's appropriate. Does that approach make sense rather than rattling the cage? So they have 3 sessions, one on crime, one on health, one on housing, and they've got various critics associated with them that will be attending at those. And then if we, amongst everyone attending UBCM, we have try to get someone at each one of those, and then we can discuss post UBCM if we want to pursue a specific meeting with a critic if you think this would be to our advantage based on the conversations that we've had at the minister meetings and so on at UBCM, given that I think the critics will be a little easier to get meetings with than the ministers. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I would support sort of, it sounds like there's open opportunities, so we can go individually if we choose, and we think there's a reason to follow up as a group, then we do so. I would say, with the party in government, we have identified specific opportunities for them to do better and are lobbying as a group on that. And I sort of feel that the same approach is warranted with the opposition, as opposed to sort of going and saying to them, pitch us on what I think we should, if we're going to go as a group, we should go with a specific ask or thought in mind. So unless we're going to bring the same message to the opposition, I do prefer your approach of waiting and seeing what makes sense, and then go with a specific ask as a group that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I don't see any other hands here, so I'm going to move receipt of this. I'm happy that we had the brief discussion we've had on this topic, and we'll discuss divvying up and see if we can get people to the majority, if not all, of these preset opportunities that they have, and we'll take it from there. So I'll move receipt. Councillor French seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. This concerns the request for consultation on CN's amended 3-year rail network plan, a letter from your office. I'm very pleased to see the press coverage that this initiative has received. And I think it's a topic where Squamish really can and should be taking a lead. We're in a unique position to do so. A couple of things to highlight from the letter for the public, if you like. In the second bullet there, regional mobility and future transit, just quote here, while discontinuance of the rail line north of Squamish may open the door to future passenger rail use, this can and has in certain parts of the public discussion been overemphasized. The reality is that freight pays for passenger rail, and it will never be different in the province of BC. We're not a high-density urban area like in middle of Europe. It's the reality is, and that reality can be related to us by some local expertise. We have with the West Coast Railway Association, we have 2 people who are senior managers of major railway maintenance portfolios. One retired from BC Rail and recently vice president of maintenance from Southern Railway. And these gentlemen can tell us exactly why you cannot have passenger rail pay for rail maintenance. It just won't work. The issue is not an opportunity for passenger rail. It is bluntly survival of and avoiding the potential loss of a rail line that would serve future shippers to the north of us, including First Nations communities involved in industries, and as well as the potential for tourist passenger service in future. But tourist passenger service will not pay for rail maintenance. The other point that's made in the letter is, and that's so important, is continued rail access to Squamish's port is essential. That access is not from the south, it's to and from the north. Access to and from the north, not only to Squamish terminals, but the other half of our port for Site B. Site B and Squamish terminals, that continued railway access to the north is hugely important. And so these are points that we can continue to emphasize in our discussions and not least with the public as well. So great letter, Mayor Herford, and this will be a campaign. It'll be a tough one. It's not going to be an easy issue. And we can look forward to perhaps some discussions in 2 weeks' time in Victoria on this matter as well.
Thank you. And further to the, actually, maybe I'll move receipt of the letter and I'll speak to it if it's seconded. Just take movies on. Okay.
I will so move.
Yeah, thank you. Just as well as this, along with this letter, I've also had some meetings with our that have been sort of facilitated by our MLA and involve elected officials along the line, and just trying to figure out an appropriate approach here for this work going forward. So that's why the thrust of the letter is like, we need a process here, and how's this going to work, and when we need a plan for that. So thank you for pulling this and giving it some more visibility, and the discussion here, I think, is a long way from over. It's just begun. So we'll try to carve a path forward here. Councillor Pettingill.
I just wanted to challenge my colleague a little bit, and I take some of the points, but I wonder if I think what has been said maybe makes sense in our current accounting of costs and benefits and what things we choose to ignore in that. And if we look at sort of highway, the ongoing costs of all the vehicles on it, the lost opportunity in time, loss of lives, and the billions and billions of dollars that I think inevitably go in many indirect ways into that highway. If we apply that to, well, what if we put a major chunk of that into passenger rail? The math might work out differently. So it would require a different way of thinking about it, but maybe not something we need to completely write off, but maybe also not something we're ready to jump to tomorrow. But there's maybe some opportunity there if we tighten up our accounting a little bit.
Okay, we will have many debates on rail line usage going forward. So I look forward to those. They'll be great. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. I think that was it for correspondence referred, and we didn't have any advisory body recommendations or committee recommendations. No business arising from the minutes. Notice of motion. Seeing none. Open question period. Is there anyone present that would like ask a question of clarification related to any agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on. Council or staff announcements. Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. While I suspect this won't come as news to anybody, I wanted to point out that Saturday is the Whistler Grand Fond of Whistler. And we all know from past experience the impact that event has on our community. So make sure you don't plan a trip to Vancouver or Whistler on that day unless you have planned it well and are working around the Grand Fondo schedule. And to all of those who are participating in the big ride, have fun.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
If you're looking to stay local, you can ride your bike, take the bus, or walk over to the Brackendale Fall Fair for the annual festivities, zucchini races and all. Look forward to seeing you there.
Okay, any other announcements? I feel like so many things. It feels like a lifetime since Squamish Days at the beginning of August, and I'd just like to thank everyone involved, whether that is volunteering or coming out and enjoying the festivities. It's a great way to see really the community come together, and all the various not-for-profits working together to achieve something that is maybe just adjacent to their overall missions, and is one of my favorite times of the year. So that was an amazing weekend, and I think the upcoming fall fair sort of falls into that similar category of these opportunities to come together as a community, and and are just great institutions in the community. I wanted to offer a congratulations to Ellie Hoskins for winning the Elite Women's Enduro World Championship in Switzerland just this past weekend. Really, the amount of the level of riders that are coming out of the athletes that are coming out of Squamish. I won't limit it to mountain bikes. I know the same thing. We have a really high level of all of the sports around here, but a world championship at the elite level is something that is really, really special. And for those that don't know, she will be wearing one of the coveted, she gets to wear a world championship jersey, the rainbow stripes, for the whole season next year. And it's something that is really special in the world of cycling. So pretty amazing for that young athlete. And I know she's just getting started. I believe it's her first year out of in elite as well. So pretty special. And if you see a rainbow blur on the trails of Squamish coming forward, it's probably Ellie. So that's I'll leave I could probably talk at length about all the things through August and upcoming, but I'll leave my update there. Councillors Banick?
Yeah, I just have to pick up on a couple things. I think Squamish Arts Fest happened. I guess that was late July, fantastic event. And I think that was paired with I can't remember if it's still the branding, but the Open Street Day and so on. And so thanks to Squamish Arts. And there's also down at the Squamish Feather Park, the big day of the concerts as part of Arts Fest. And so the BIA and Squamish Arts that really activated the downtown and made it a fantastic place to be. I want to say thank you. And I keep on hearing from people who really enjoyed Cleveland being closed and being able to just walk around that whole area with festivals going on, and why aren't we doing more of this? And so I think we should really double down on the opportunities to support that, enable that, facilitate that. People really seem to like that, and just how Alive Junction Park has happened. I know Arc'teryx had a big thing there as well. My partner and I went out for dinner one night and came home, driving home past Junction Park, and there was, I'm not sure, I can't remember the name of the organization, but there's all kinds of Latin music and dancing and people just dancing out in the park. And it's just, a pop-up. They brought their own sound system in, and just constantly things like this happening, making Squamish such a lively, fantastic place to be all summer. So I'm sure there's lots of groups that were part of that I didn't recognize, but thank you to everyone in Squamish that just made this a fantastic summer.
Awesome. Any other comments? Seeing none, we don't have a motion to close. We don't have any council or staff in-camera announcements. So if someone would like, yes, Councillor French,
Yeah, I'd like to move termination.
is that seconded by? No, I'll second that, and I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.